Welcome to your podcast, Leadership is Tricky, where we'll tackle various topics, challenges, and experiences as it relates to your investment in leadership. So, let's design success together. Now your hosts.
Hey, welcome back to Leadership is Tricky. What's going on, Stephen?
Nothing much, man. How you doing, Eric?
I'm doing good, doing very well. It's been a long day, so I'm sitting in my basement tonight, and I know it's probably mid-afternoon where you're at.
Yeah, and I'm wearing short sleeves, and it looks like you're wearing a hoodie, so maybe a little bit different climate too.
It's cold, man. I'm down here like a cave troll, you know.
It's finally getting better here, so happy spring is around the corner, man. Hope it is for you soon.
Oh yeah, I mean, I spent a couple hours on the golf course today. It's about 54 degrees.
There you go.
I started with a beanie, and then I broke out of the different layers as the day went on. But
Sweet.
It's cold, man.
Get the vitamin D when you can, for sure.
Right. So today we're going to talk about our firstborns, right? And should they be leading? Within our family dynamics here, we both have our firstborns are girls.
Yep.
You have a son, and I have another daughter. Who I'm telling you, if she was the first, she'd be a single child, but
she'd be the first and only.
Oh man, yeah, she's a handful. But yeah, so I'll let you kind of lead the way with this one today, and let's talk about our firstborns.
Yeah, so way too many psychologists, psychiatrists, child therapy folks, and those that have always looked at sociology in general, they've always looked at firstborns as the inherent leader of, the siblings. And then as they proceed in life, there's like this, natural tendency for them to become that innate leader. And something that we aspire to, at least on Leadership is Tricky, is, leadership somewhat intrinsic to folks, but we think it's a learned skill and behavior. Like anybody can be a leader. And that's something that we always want to profess. So I think the first point I wanted to make was, even myself as a firstborn, I think naturally as you grow up and you're reared by your parents, either single, dual, whatever, there are moments where you're told, like, watch your brother, watch your sister, as the parents have to go take care of something else as you get older. So I think you're just thrown into the deep end and you have to figure things out just on the fly, somewhat like life truly is. So you're always the experiment as well, because your parents typically with that first kid, they have no idea. They've read every book, maybe went to every class, watched every video, right, whatever it happens to be, and they're trying to figure out alongside you as well. So I know I said a lot of things there. The focus area there is the firstborn just unfortunately happens to have to be in that situation where they just are either thrown into it, they are figuring it out as they go, and then the resilience is built as they, march through that path of life.
It's funny you say that, though, because it's exactly what happened to my firstborn yesterday. So we dropped him off to do their very first horse riding lesson, right? I know it's going to sound bad. Yes, my kids do every activity. They're fortunate to be in a place now where we could throw that stuff at them, but I looked at my daughter, Linnea, and I was like, hey, you need to watch your sister. You need to make sure she's okay. So she had to be focused. We thought about it later. Me and my wife were talking about it, but, she has to be focused on making sure her sister is safe, secure, listening, right, to the instructor, or, she probably couldn't just fully invest herself in the activity. So we felt kind of bad, but, we do that all the time, and I didn't think of it until you brought this topic up of us talking about our firstborns and how we thrust them into this leadership role, and maybe unfairly, right? I fortunately, was not a firstborn, right? I have an older sister, and growing up, she was the caretaker, right? I was a latchkey kid. I came home, she made sure that, I ate my beanies and weenies and, did my homework, and, parents work late. So sometimes she'd put me to bed. That's a lot of responsibility to put on kids. But I wonder, why that is, though. I mean, is it just born out of necessity where we're like, hey, both parents are working, and or if there's a single parent, if it's just your next man up mentality, maybe that's what it is.
I mean, yeah. So I did it this morning as well. My wife and I were getting ready in our bathroom, just kind of getting ready for the day. Kids were up eating breakfast. We put a movie on. We tell our oldest, "Hey, watch your little brother." Why did I do that? Probably because she's older, right? I mean, that happens to be, but who's watching her? And
Right.
we make an assumption when we tell the oldest in that moment that you're okay. You need to watch said individual, but nobody needs to watch you. And maybe that's a fallacy on behalf of parents everywhere. And I think it's a necessary fallacy. I think it's something that you just inherently have to do because, parents are the formal leaders, if you will, of a family unit. They can't be everywhere all the time. And it's the delegation and the empowerment to the next person up. If it's a boy or a girl, it's your turn to, jump in the deep end, be for a moment a parent. I hate to say that loosely. Our daughter is now 6. It's not like she was going to burn the house down. We fully trusted her in that moment. But we're only talking, a handful of minutes at best of just her watching, her little brother.
No, as you're saying that, though, I'm thinking in my head right now, and I didn't want to lose the thought, is
Yeah.
that we put them in that position, but then we don't give them all of the authority and power all of the time, right? It's only like,
Oh no.
here, you can
When
take
you
a
hear
little
the
bit.
screaming, you're out there.
Or, I find my oldest talking to my youngest, and, then we'll jump in and be like, hey, you're not the mother, right? Or, we're the parent, right? And then she's confused. She's looking at us. So now I think I'm kind of looking at myself now, like, am I a bad parent?
No, so I just had that thought because we keep telling our daughter, our oldest, stop being the parent, stop telling him what to do. You don't have to do that. Take on that responsibility, because she gets so frustrated when
Right.
he doesn't listen to her. And then there's the screaming, there's the fighting, there's the whatever ensuing. And we tell her all the time, you're the kid, we're the parent. But am I being hypocritical right now? Like, am I having a breakthrough moment with you, Eric? Like, this is uncomfortable
Absolutely.
right
I'm,
now.
I'm telling you, I'm
Crap.
seeing myself on the screen right now. Like,
Oh
man.
man.
Yeah,
Um,
because my oldest is so I'll say her name, Linnea, right? So Linnea is one of those kids that extremely bright, extremely intelligent. I know all parents say that about their kids, but you know, she truly is, right? So she um follows the rules. She is a rule follower. She's just like my wife, who is German, and my wife follows the rules, right?
yeah.
She's in lockstep. Like, we're gonna do the same thing at 7:30 every day, right? We're getting out the door, right? We're brushing our teeth, we're eating our food. Everything's regimented. Which is good, because I'm the complete opposite. I just flow in and out of life. But Linnea loves structure, and when there is no structure, or there's a ripple in the matrix, she goes off the deep end, right? So my youngest is probably 10 times as bad as I am, in which she moves to her own beat, right? So I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. I'm not going to rush. She's kind of the hippie of the family. So they're constantly in conflict of each other. And yeah, I mean, we see it, I think now that she's about to turn 8, and her sister, who's 5, they, because we've told her over and over again, it's like, hey, watch your sister, or go play with your sister, or hey, we're going to run over here real quick, you keep an eye on, right? Or even in the morning, right? They come down, and Linnea will make her breakfast, and they'll have breakfast, they'll clean up their plates, and all that. But she's like in that role of the third parent,
Yeah.
until it's not convenient for us, because they're about to kill each other upstairs, something, because Alina, the baby, does not listen, right? Yeah, so I'm gonna have to relook the way I'm doing
Yeah.
my parenting business. But yeah, maybe we
Well,
are hypocritical.
so this podcast is going a different direction than what I thought.
Oh man, it's just therapy. I'm gonna have to lay on this couch behind me.
Well, here's the thing too. So I'm a firstborn, and I see what I'm doing to my daughter was kind of done to me. I had a brother that he was born literally less than 1 year. So we're the same age for 2 days out of the year. And we've always been very close. Not to say my third brother, or other sibling, the third son, isn't also, but we grew up having the same birthday parties, the same experiences in life, everything really, until we got into our formative years where I was driving first and going to middle and high school and all that stuff. But we watch home videos every now and then, and it's me at like this thing where we're building something and I'm like telling him what to do in the moment. And you said it earlier with the horse riding, like I maybe wasn't fully engaged just for myself. I was making sure he was taken care of first. And then I got to build the little contraption or whatever it was that they were filming at the time. I don't want my daughter to miss out on just having that like present moment. Like it's all about her too. Like, so she can be a little selfish because she's the kid. She shouldn't have to have, the responsibilities of watching her sibling. So
let me ask this question then. How's your relationship with your brother now?
So now, we talk often. We probably talk more often than my youngest sibling, which I think it is what it is. And he comes to me for a lot of advice. So I think I've always been that confidant of his, and his wife even told me too. He's like, he'll do anything you tell him to do. I'm like, well, I don't want that responsibility, but it's true.
Right.
And not in a bad way. Like I don't take advantage. I'll put that out there fully so people don't think I'm manipulating my brother. But yeah, like we've always had that bond. And it's vice versa. Like he was the parent before I was a parent, which is really interesting too. He had kids way back in the day before I did. I just unfortunately found my wife later in life. So I've had to go to him and I can reverse role, so to speak, and basically take his lead on how do you rear a child, how do you take care of a baby and a family unit and all of those things. So that's interesting.
It's interesting because like, so I have two younger brothers, right? One, my brother Hector, he, how old is Hector? He's probably about 8 years younger than I am.
Okay.
And, me and my sister were 2 years apart. So, my sister and I, we share mother, father, right? And then I've got my other brother who is my stepbrother. We don't use those terms in our family, but and then I got my youngest brother who is same father, different mother, right? So we're like patchwork Skittles family. Yeah, but
I love the analogy. It's great.
Yeah, my brother who's 8 years apart. I mean, we spent a lot of time together. Him following me around all over the neighborhood, my parents having me watch him all the time, right? So I had to fall into that kind of first born role, because at some point, me and my sister stayed with my mother, and then I went off to live with my father, and then there was this new patchwork dynamic. But yeah, he'd follow me around the neighborhood. We play all kinds of sports, all this type of stuff. But he and I, when we look back now, I mean, we're extremely close, right? Because he always looked up to me, big bro, this and that. But then, my youngest brother, I left the house when he was 4. Like I went to go live my life as an adult when he was 4 years old. But I was there, rocking him as a baby, changing his diapers, all that type of stuff. And, we still look at him in the family. I do anyways, is the baby, right? He is the baby. But yeah, now when I look back though, I mean, I spent a lot of time watching kids in that role, right? Where, yeah, when I'm out and about, I want to be with my friends, but no, I've got, he's like an ankle bracelet, it's like, man, I can't go too far. I can't go too wild, right? I got to go check back in, right? Make sure he's alive, right? But I mean, I don't know. I won't say that it was resentment at any point, but you felt limited in what you could do.
I want to ask you, so I want to pull the string on that. So you said an ankle bracelet. I still feel like you had a choice, and maybe your parents made it sound like you didn't because they told you watch your brother, do this, do that. But I think at the end of the day, you still had a choice, especially with the youngest, when you were a lot older. What made you choose to even have the responsibility in the first place? What was it about caring for your siblings?
It's an interesting question. I know you're going to put me on the spot, but you're right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was a choice. I could have said no, right? It's not something I want to do, but I mean, you love your family, right? You want to help contribute and you want to fill those gaps, Now that you look back on it, I mean, it was necessary, right? Both my parents were working. Who else was going to watch them? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
I guess what I'm trying to say is there was something about like something in you that said, I want to be in this role, because you could have came back and maybe done a horrible job. Something bad could have happened. Your parents would have had to figure out yet another strategy, because they're the parents still at the end of the day. You're not the parents.
right.
They might have found a babysitter or found another way to, I don't know, work-life balance, doing something different. So I'm just saying, like, why did you feel like it was you versus anybody else? And
Yeah,
maybe
I think
that's,
when you go back right to what we kind of started with this episode was like, the firstborn role, right?
yeah,
And then having to lead or being thrusted into some type of leadership capacity, whether it was formal, informal. In this case, it's informal, right? Because you don't have any formal authority. You can't make them do anything.
my
But
hypothesis is that I think it was attractive to you that your parents even empowered and trusted you with those words of watch your brother, take care of your brother. And I think that's extremely powerful for any leader, if it's like what we're talking about now with firstborns, or even in your professional environment with your team. Like, the moment that you have that moment with somebody else and you give them a little bit of the leash, so to speak, and let them go off and handle something extremely important, like the life of a person in this instance. There was this, I think maybe that was attractive to you, and that helped build your confidence in that rearing kind of capability and taking care of your brother. And then you saw some other probably added benefit. Albeit I'm sure there were moments where you were like, God, I wish I could just go off and do what I want to do. I don't want
right.
this added, responsibility, go back home, whatever. And just go be with your friends and be a little selfish for that moment. But I still think there was something about it that was intriguing to you.
I think so. Right now that you say it like that, like I want to start crying here. I mean, my eyes are getting water. I'm getting a little warm on the inside. I'm not paying for this session, by the way, Stephen.
Well, I mean, I think about it with my daughter, because we just had that moment about 10 minutes ago where we said maybe we're talking out both sides of our mouth. But I feel like I'm really trusting her a lot too when I do those micro leader moments with her and say, hey, can you watch your brother? Hey, can you show him how to do
Uh,
this? Hey, can you go upstairs and play with him while we do this? Or like they go off in the backyard and just mess around and get dirty and stuff. It's just those micro moments will add up. And I think one day it's all going to prove beneficial. And I think the challenge here, we're talking about firstborns, but it has to be reversed as well. And you can't forget about, if you happen to have other children, other members of your family unit, you've got to do it with the other ones too.
right. Yeah. So since you are a firstborn, right, and you have this relationship with your brother, was there ever a time that you failed or that you look back on and you like, damn, I wish I had that moment back?
Yeah, so my turn to be on the spot, right? I think in high school, when we were both, like I said, a year apart, I was driving. He was just about like 14, 15. I was just 16. There were plenty of moments that I became very selfish, especially like after school. I was the ride home, where
Right.
I'd make him go sit out in the car waiting for me because I had to go and do whatever I had to do because he wasn't important to me at that moment. Scott, if you're listening out there, I don't know if you are or not, but yeah, like that's a huge regret of mine. I wish I would have paid more attention to that, because he's brought it up to me and I was a little bit taken aback. And this was, years ago when we had this chat, but you know, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that's the cliche phrase here that rings true, especially for siblings that look up to other siblings.
Right.
You got to balance the selfishness versus, they're really counting on you also. And that's a huge task in and of itself. And you can't take it lightly. You just can't. And thank God, like I didn't break all of the trust that we might have had in the relationship that we had. So I know of plenty of examples that I've read about online too, where, it has come to that, where whatever choice that older sibling or whatever made, they've totally, singled themselves out from either a sibling, family unit, whatever. And unfortunately, it's hard to come back from that. There's parables in the Bible, if you're religious out there, about this, about the firstborn returning back to the family, after the rest of the family works hard and toils, and they have this big feast and celebration, and there's some jealousy there and stuff, but it's huge. You gotta always have the open arms, and just ensure that I think the person always had the best of intentions, albeit we all are fallible. We all have our moments of not being our best selves, let's just say.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Man, it's almost like Bruno from Encanto, right? So
it's exactly that, which again, that will be a potential conversation of ours. But yeah, like that moment in that movie at the end, it's jarring when Abuela gives him a hug. Like, God, it was just right by the river too. And it was just a great moment. Sometimes you just got to be that way.
Right. No, I mean, we watch that movie all the time here, and it makes you reflect on yourself a little bit, right? No, so I had to ask that question because it went through my head, especially with my brother Hector, who, and I won't tell anybody this, but he's my favorite. But
so everybody keep it a secret, right?
No, not so much my favorite, but we are probably the closest, right? And there was a time when I used to hate him following me around. I used to hate it, right? Because I wanted to hang out with my friends, and there was always this little kid next to me all the time, right? Until he wasn't. So we went out to go play baseball one day, right across from our apartment, and out there with my buddies. And I told my brother, just hang out next to me. And that's why I said until he wasn't, because I looked down and he was gone. And I looked up and he was running behind a guy that was swinging the bat at that moment and dinged him in the forehead. Oh. And hit him pretty hard. And next, there's blood everywhere coming down. And I picked him up, carried him upstairs. My dad swung the door open. It was like, saying all kinds of choice words and say, "You wait here," and took him to the hospital. And he had to get stitches, and he still has like the Harry Potter type scar on his forehead. And, and every time I see him and I see that scar, I feel so guilty, right? Because he was entrusted, he was under my care, right? And I had that responsibility. It was thrusted upon me, and I failed him in that moment because I wanted to hang out with friends and play baseball. And to be quite honest, none of those friends are around. Where my brother is, right? So that's one of the ones that I look back on, and I wish I could get that moment back. One, to save him from some pain, and then just so I didn't have to carry that around forever. Like, I was caring, feeding for him when he got back from the hospital and all over. I'm like, oh man, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sure, man.
Even to this day, when I see that that Harry Potter scar, I'm like, oh man, I did that to him.
Have you told him this?
Probably not. I'm probably gonna call him after this.
Yeah.
I'm feeling a certain type of way after this conversation. So.
Sorry, man. We're having all these breakthroughs right now, everybody.
I know. I'm gonna go upstairs and tell my daughter. I was like, I appreciate you. Thank you for always looking out for your sister. But
so speaking of that, I guess one final comment I'll make is, and I hope our listeners get this, is that it doesn't matter if it's a boy or a girl as the firstborn. It's agnostic of that. I mean, maybe society treats firstborn males and females differently, but I think the context that we're putting out there today, it doesn't matter. It's the role that's thrusted upon said sibling or said child. I mean, it just happens to be that way. And I know studies will show that firstborns tend to do X, Y, and Z, but I think it's important to do it with all of your said children or siblings or whatever it happens to be. And if you can make the jump to like the team that you potentially are leading, or the folks that you surround yourself with professionally, in your personal network outside of work, if it's social clubs and organizations or whatever else that you're involved with, just entrusting those to do those micro leader moments that I'm talking about. I think it's critical and important to any development and relationship building.
Yeah, I mean, what do I say after that, Stephen? I mean, that was beautifully said. But if we stay with the gender piece of it too, right? Because we both have daughters that are our firstborns, and there's times where her teachers have said that she's bossy. Oh, it drives me nuts. right? Even when she was in kindergarten, she's directing the flow of play and traffic, right, within the kindergarten.
Yeah.
But what I have found though is that ever since we had our second child, that she has truly uplifted herself into like this leadership, all these competencies and qualities that we look for in leaders. She has those at such a young age. And I try to tell her all the time, and I don't know how you do it with your child, but I tell her every day, be smart, be beautiful, be calm, and be brave, and continue to lead, right? Don't let anyone tell you that you're being bossy or any of that, right? Because if it was a male, and again, this is Eric's opinion, right? We wouldn't say those things. We'd say, oh, he's captain of the football team. He's material, right? He's going to, lead his frat, to prosperity and stuff like that. But, when it comes to girls, I think there is kind of a different stigma that's placed on them, right? But yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I know with my daughter, I try to empower her and kind of encourage her to go ahead and live up to her potential and be a leader in any moment.
Yeah, so our family's all boys. I mean, my parents had all boys, so I didn't have that perspective until I had a daughter, and I only have one daughter. But being a girl dad, and if you are a girl dad out there, you get this. And maybe it's in Western society, I don't know, because maybe there are some societies that comment that you talked about that you heard from her teacher wouldn't even exist,
right?
But it does, and we have to be real about that. And I have to remind my daughter Kayla constantly about that. I don't think she's old enough yet to have those opportunities. She's a shade younger than your oldest, but now that she's doing some sports and activities outside of school with teams, she's learning what that looks like. And what's interesting right now, just a personal story, she's on a t-ball team right now, and she's the only girl on it. And it's interesting so far what the dynamic is, because it's a lot of boys, obviously, that's what I'm mentioning, and they haven't had a first game yet. And I'm curious to watch how that's going to unfold. So far at the practices, she's been very engaging. They went through the first round of like how to hit and run to first base. Like that's a huge monumental step forward for 5 and 6 year olds.
Right.
And she was playing the pitcher position, which typically when you think baseball, like that's where everything starts. And she got to throw one person out. Like she actually grounded the ball and threw it to first base. And the kid fortunately caught the grounder or whatever that came to him. And they got the runner out, which was really cool. And we had a chat after it, because she didn't know she didn't know that was such a big deal, but she did it. And the team, rallied around that in the moment. I'm like, Kayla, that was great. Like, don't ever forget that moment. Like, that was great. You led that play and it developed, and then you made the out, and everybody can learn from that now, because nobody had any idea
right.
to get the ball to first base. So I thought that was really cool. And I'm just going to keep, harping on little moments like that, so she doesn't lose sight of, the impacts. Like you said it with your daughter, like when you see it in the moment, and we had an episode on feedback, like you have to do it in the moment as clear as you can, so that it clicks. Sometimes it won't, which is fine. Feedback can either be, listened to or thrown away, even at a 5 or 6 year old's level. But
no, but I mean, we talk about all the time. I mean, feedback is a gift, right? And what we talk about all the time is that SBI model. It's situation, behavior, and impact. So you give feedback in the moment, because something happens now, you say 2 weeks from now, people lose context, right? But you talk about, this is what happened, this was the behavior exhibited, whether it's positive or negative, and it's the impact it had on me and or the organization. But I just wanted to throw it out there just from a teaching perspective. But no, just going back to your story, that's a lot of hand-eye coordination for kids that age. So that's a win all in itself.
Yeah. And it was like maybe 5 minutes of telling her beforehand, hey, if you get the ball, throw it that direction. And she did it. It was really cool. So proud dad moment for sure.
Oh,
one of a future of about 1 million, I'm sure. So looking forward.
Yeah. So we're coming up on close here, Stephen.
Yeah.
No, this was a great topic. No, we wanted to keep it short, but once we start talking about our babies and it gets away from us. But Hey, so for folks out there that want to share your stories about your firstborns, if you're a firstborn and kind of how you were thrusted into that leadership moment, please go to leadershipistricky.com and hit the message chat feature. And, we want to hear your feedback and your stories. And then, we'll highlight a couple here on one of the episodes here in the future. For those just joining us, this is your first episode, welcome. Please go back to episode 1, season 1 and catch up. And or if you just want to go back to last week, go back to last week. But yeah, Steve, hey, any parting shots?
No, just keep in touch with us. We really love the feedback that's pouring in, and we just want to be sensitive to what you want to hear. So any ideas are on the table, and that's what's cool about leadership. You can attribute it to anything that happens in your life. So come be a part of our thing that's going on here.
Cool. All right, you guys have thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.